There are many extraordinary places, but you would probably find it hard to imagine that, in a remote corner of West Africa, hidden among the dunes of the hottest and deadliest desert, there is a forgotten kingdom shrouded in legendary mysteries. A nation that maintains traditions as provocative as the Gerewol, an ancestral festival in which hundreds of men paint themselves and compete for days to be chosen and become faithful lovers by the thousands of women who crowd the place even if they are already married. In this new video from Uncensored World, we will learn more about Niger, the country with the youngest and most fertile population on Earth, with an average of almost 7 children per woman, and also, as you will now discover, one of the most extraordinary places on the planet. A society where female empowerment is so strong that it is the men who hide their faces under veils and compete to win the women's hearts. A land of mysteries that has fascinated adventurers for centuries, with gigantic mud mosques, camel races among the dunes, and unique cultures such as that of the Tuareg, legendary nomads who survive the most hostile desert on the planet thanks to secret codes that guide them to hidden oases hundreds of kilometers away by observing the stars. A country that preserves ancient traditions such as paying for brides with livestock, and where there are villages where adults disappear and children and teenagers grow up alone, facing extreme rites and learning to ride camels almost before they can walk. A region that is home to wonders that border on the unreal, such as the inhospitable Tenere Desert, an ocean of burning dunes, considered the hottest and most dangerous on the planet, or the mysterious Lake Ghani, where sacred crocodiles live peacefully alongside villagers without a single attack ever having been reported. Pay attention and don't miss this video, because we guarantee that discovering Niger with Uncensored World will surprise you. Let's get started. In a remote corner of West Africa, hidden among the dunes of the hottest and deadliest desert, lies Niger, the youngest and most fertile country on the planet, and also one of the least known. A land that seems frozen in time, marked by extreme challenges, but also by traditions that, as you are about to see, amaze the world. Located right in the heart of the Sahel, Niger borders countries such as Mali, Nigeria, Libya, and Chad, in a region that has historically been a crossroads of caravans, conflicts, and ancient cultures. Despite its immense territory, much of the country is pure desert, which means that its population is concentrated in very specific areas, especially in the south and near rivers. The population density is low, not because of a lack of people or births, but because of the inhospitable environment. Surviving in the Sahara Desert is no easy task, and even less so in this region of the planet where the Tenere Desert is located, the hottest desert on the planet, and also one of the most arid, lethal, and empty areas in the world. The Tenere is known as the desert within the desert, and with good reason. Here, for hundreds of kilometers, there is not a single tree, not a shadow, not a natural source of water. However, it is precisely for this reason that unique cultures have flourished here, adapting to inhuman conditions, such as that of the Tuareg, whom you will soon learn more about. But before discovering these realities and traditions, it is necessary to travel to the past and present of this forgotten country to understand how it was born, what ethnic groups make it up, and why, despite its shortcomings, it holds some of humanity's most extraordinary secrets. Niger owes its name to the Niger River, one of the most important rivers on the African continent, although its exact etymology remains a mystery. Some believe that the name comes from the Tuareg word Geren, which means river of rivers. The most curious thing is that, despite giving the country its name, the Niger River barely touches its territory in the southwest. The territory we now know as Niger was home to ancient empires such as the Songhai and Kanem-Bornu for centuries, and later became a strategic point for desert trade routes, where gold, salt, and slaves were exchanged. In the 19th century, as with much of the continent, it fell under French colonial rule, becoming part of French West Africa, and it was not until 1960 that Niger gained its independence, beginning a modern history marked by social, political, and extreme climatic challenges. As a legacy of this colonial period, the official language remains French, although traditional languages such as Hausa, Zarma, and Tamashek predominate in everyday life, reflecting the large number of ethnic groups living in this region. The majority religion in Niger is Islam, practiced by more than 98% of the population. However, this Islam is neither uniform nor orthodox. Here, faith has been shaped by centuries of African traditions, giving rise to a deeply spiritual but also flexible form, influenced by the environment, ancestors, and local beliefs. Today, rituals combining Islamic practices with ancient animist customs are still celebrated, where the sacred and the everyday are intertwined. In this context, one can find surprising realities such as societies where men cover their faces with turbans while women walk uncovered, or where women publicly choose their lovers during tribal celebrations. This has a lot to do with the fact that in Niger, power has not always been male. In some ethnic groups, female influence sets the pace of social, emotional, and even spiritual life. A clear example of this is the Gerewol Festival, where men wear makeup, dance, and compete with each other for a single purpose, to be chosen by women as their lovers. But we will talk more about that ritual later. All this diversity also has a lot to do with the fact that Niger is not a homogeneous country, as it is home to more than a dozen different ethnic groups. The Hausa and Zarma Sonrai are the most numerous, but there are also the Pule and the mythical Tuareg, known for their blue caravans and their nomadic life in the middle of the desert. In these societies, each group preserves its language, clothing, rituals, and worldview, forming a melting pot of cultures that, although often forgotten by the rest of the planet, is one of the most vibrant and resilient in all of Africa. One of the curiosities that also makes this country unique is its demographics, as so many children are born in Niger that more than half of its population is under the age of 15. In fact, this country is considered the youngest in the world, and this explosive youth is due to the fact that the average number of children per woman exceeds 6.7, something that is directly linked to cultural and religious factors and, of course, survival. This extreme fertility has its reasons. In a land where infant mortality and resource scarcity are high, having many children is seen as a guarantee of family survival. In addition, polygamy remains a common and socially accepted practice, especially in rural areas where a man can have several wives and a large number of children. But where does this custom come from? Polygamy in Niger is not only a legacy of Islamic tradition, but also an ancestral strategy to strengthen community ties and increase the family workforce. In many regions of the country, the more children a man has, the greater his social prestige and influence within the clan. That is why early marriage and pressure to have large families are not only well regarded, but considered a clear sign of success. And to get more wives, many men exchange cattle in a practice known as dowry or bride price, where the number and quality of the animals offered can make the difference between being accepted or rejected by the bride's family. The most incredible thing is that, on occasion, young men travel hundreds of kilometers across the Tenere Desert, literally risking their lives to reach the country's largest cattle markets. Some even travel in caravans for weeks, facing extreme temperatures, sandstorms, and the constant threat of running out of water just to be able to pay the price of a wife. And while the heat in the country relentlessly beats down, Niger is battling another of its records, being one of the hottest places on the planet. In some regions, temperatures can exceed 50 degrees during the day and drop below freezing at night. This brutal temperature range has forced the development of extreme adaptation techniques, such as sleeping half-buried in the sand, wearing thick blankets in the middle of the desert, and erecting tents specially designed to withstand both heat and cold. In the middle of this golden hell lies the Tenere Desert, considered by many to be the most lethal desert on Earth. A place where life seems impossible, but where some of the most resilient and extraordinary cultures on the planet live, surviving in a region without shade, water, or marked routes. These are societies capable of protecting themselves and collaborating to survive, which we will learn more about later. But if the desert commands respect, what happens in its oases is even more baffling, because hundreds of miles from any modern city, there is a magical lake hidden among the dunes, Lake Ghani. The incredible thing about this place is that there are crocodiles that the villagers consider sacred. This seems to be true, as children and adults bathe alongside them in the lake, fishing and feeding them, and there have never been any reports of attacks. Locals believe that these crocodiles are protectors sent by the spirits. Some feed them by hand, others sing ancestral rituals to them. Scientists still do not fully understand their peaceful behavior, but the truth is that these reptiles coexist with humans in one of the most surreal scenes on the African continent. In this scorching desert, where temperatures can exceed 50 degrees during the day and drop below 5 degrees at night, lives one of the most enigmatic nomadic peoples on the planet, the Tuareg. This community is known as the Blue Men because of the intense indigo color of their robes and turbans, made from cotton dyed by hand using ancestral techniques. The dye, which does not completely set in the fabric, gradually transfers to the skin, leaving faces and hands marked with a bluish hue. This coloring not only distinguishes them visually, but in ancient times it was believed that blue gave them spiritual protection against evil spirits and the evil eye. In addition, the dark color helped absorb sweat and regulate body temperature, becoming a symbol of both identity and resilience in one of the most hostile environments on the planet. This Berber group has developed survival codes as ancient as the dunes they inhabit, passed down orally from generation to generation. The Tuareg are said to know ancestral secrets that allow them to endure for decades in a region so extreme that most humans would not survive a single week. Their mastery of the desert is not only physical, but also spiritual, as if they had forged a silent pact with the sands of the Sahara. The Tuaregs live mainly in Niger, Mali, Algeria, and Libya. Their ancestral language, Tamashek, is written in a unique alphabet, Tifinagh, an ancient script that is still passed down from generation to generation. This language not only preserves the oral history of the Tuareg people, but is also a symbol of cultural resistance in the face of modernity. The contrasts in Niger's societies are as striking as they are authentic, and among the Tuareg these contrasts are most pronounced. In a radical departure from other Muslim cultures, among the Tuareg it is the men who hide their faces rather than the women. That is why one of the most iconic elements of this community is the male veil, known as the tagelmust, which covers the faces of men from puberty onwards. This veil not only protects them from the scorching sun and sandstorms of the Sahara, but also has a deep spiritual value, as according to their tradition, a man must never show his mouth to an elder or a person of higher status. Furthermore, in this society, it is women who hold a position of power that is rare in the Muslim world. Tuareg women enjoy exceptional freedom. They can inherit property, divorce without stigma, and actively participate in family and social decision-making. In many cases, they choose their own partners and lovers, a reality that completely breaks with the traditional patterns of Islamic patriarchy. As you can see, in this desert culture, it is often women who are in charge. If you were as surprised by this fact as we were, like the video so we can continue discovering the world every week, and more people can learn about what really happens in the heart of the Sahara. Thank you. Surviving in the Tenere Desert requires ancestral knowledge, a distinctive and unique trait of the Tuareg. This ancient community has mastered the art of reading the desert like few others. The Tuareg are able to find hidden oases hundreds of kilometers away, guided only by the position of the stars, the winds, and footprints in the sand. They know the secret language of the desert. They know when a buzzing sound in the air announces the proximity of an underground water source, or how the erratic flight of a bird can indicate the presence of water. They observe the behavior of livestock, insects, and even the color of the sky to predict sandstorms or changes in the weather. This ancestral wisdom, passed down orally from generation to generation, is vital for survival in the Tenere, one of the most inhospitable places on the planet. For the Tuareg, Salt is a vital component, not only as a preservative, but also as a means of helping to retain fluids in conditions of extreme dehydration. During the day, they shelter alongside camels, essential animals that provide them with transportation, milk, and even shade from the scorching desert sun. But when night falls, the heat disappears suddenly, and temperatures can drop below freezing. To survive the extreme cold, the Tuareg use surprising techniques. They wrap their bodies in multiple layers of cotton tunics and blankets, which trap body heat, and often huddle close to camels, whose bodies emit natural heat that helps keep them warm. One of the most fascinating practices of the Tuareg is importing ice in trucks to desert villages. With no access to electricity, these blocks of ice are transported for hours to preserve food, or simply to cool drinks in the middle of the Saharan oven. In the vast dunes surrounding Agadez, every year the Tuareg hold exciting camel races, an ancient event that tests not only the endurance of these noble desert animals, but also the skill, balance, and strategy of their riders. But this city is not only famous for its nomadic traditions, but also for being home to a unique architectural gem, the Great Mosque of Agadez. Built in the 16th century and made entirely of mud and wood, this imposing structure reaches 27 meters in height, making it one of the tallest mud mosques in the world. Its pointed minaret, visible from miles away, has guided generations of travelers and traders through the desert. The entire country is full of similar wonders, with entire villages built of mud, where the buildings seem sculpted by the wind and sun, as if emerging directly from the dunes. These clay monuments, sometimes as tall as a 3-story building, are true earthen fortresses that defy time and extreme weather, reminding visitors that in this part of the world, architecture, like life itself, must also adapt to the wild. The Tuareg continue to trade in nomadic markets that change like the desert dunes, as they only appear once a month. At these temporary gatherings, animals, salt, fabrics, and other goods essential to their nomadic lifestyle are exchanged. But what is most striking is not only what is traded, but how. Free and socially prominent, Tuareg women walk among the tents wearing silver jewelry and traditional facial tattoos, attracting attention, and starring in a kind of natural parade of nomadic beauty, where commitments and alliances are also made. These markets not only sustain the economy of nomadic peoples, but also their social and cultural fabric. And although it may seem contradictory in the middle of the desert, one of the most abundant items in these markets is baguette bread. Seeing these loaves of crusty bread stacked under the Sahara sun may seem surreal, but their presence here is a direct legacy of the French colonial past, so ingrained that today it is part of everyday life for many families, even in the most isolated corners of the country. Dressed in loose tunics and turbans that cover every inch of their bodies, the Tuareg travel miles on foot or by camel in temperatures that reach 50 degrees Celsius. In this extreme climate, clothing is not a mere accessory, but a vital barrier between the body and the desert. The light color reflects the light. The natural fibers allow perspiration, and the loose-fitting shapes create air currents that protect against the scorching heat. Here, choosing the right outfit can mean the difference between life and death. But within this fascinating culture, there is something even more unusual. An ancient event that challenges all your ideas about love, beauty, and power. At the Gerewol Festival, celebrated by the Wodabe ethnic group, it is the men who wear makeup, adorn themselves, and compete to be chosen by the women as lovers. This annual courtship ritual, performed by the Wodabe ethnic group, transforms the arid landscape into a vibrant scene of color, music, and seduction. The Wodabe are a nomadic subgroup of the Fulani, known for their pastoral lifestyle and adherence to ancestral traditions. Despite living in a predominantly patriarchal society, this ethnic group maintains the Gerewol Festival, in which women exercise significant power, freely choosing their partners, even if they are already married. During this festival, men become the protagonists of this unique beauty contest. These men adorn themselves with elaborate makeup that highlights their eyes and white teeth, considered symbols of attractiveness. They also dress in colorful tunics and jewelry, and dance and sing in long lines, seeking to capture the attention of the women who watch them intently. The main dance is known as yake, and is a display of endurance and grace. For several weeks under the scorching desert sun, the men dance for hours each day, lined up in rows, with exaggerated expressions that show their white teeth, wide-open eyes, and faces perfectly painted with red, ochre, or black clay. This makeup is not just aesthetic, it is a statement of beauty and vigor. The men apply it meticulously, highlighting the features that, according to their tradition, women find most attractive. Large eyes, a thin nose, and a bright smile. Many also consume traditional concoctions made from local roots or herbs, which act as natural stimulants to resist extreme fatigue and keep them active during the grueling singing and dancing sessions which can last from dawn to nightfall. During this time, the body movements are constant, hypnotic, like a collective trance guided by the desire to be chosen. There are no judges or scores. It is the women who observe, compare, and ultimately choose. The women, for their part, walk among the dancers, seriously evaluating their performance. At the end, each woman gently touches the man she has chosen, marking the beginning of a new relationship, which may be temporary or become a more lasting bond. For the Wodabe, this festival is not only a celebration of love and beauty, but also an affirmation of female autonomy in a culture where, in other respects, men tend to have dominant roles. The Gerewol thus allows women to express their desires and make decisions about their love lives without restrictions. Beyond the romantic aspect, the Gerewol is an opportunity for Wodabe communities to gather, exchange news, and strengthen their social ties. The uniqueness of the Gerewol has captured the attention of anthropologists and travelers from around the world. Its combination of aesthetics, ritual, and female empowerment makes it a fascinating cultural phenomenon that challenges established norms and offers a different perspective on gender dynamics. In a world where dating apps and television shows dictate the rules of romance, the Gerewol presents itself as a tribal Tinder, where human connection and personal choice are celebrated in their purest and most traditional form. You may be surprised to learn that perhaps the most shocking part of this documentary is yet to come. But before we get there, we would like to ask you, how would you feel about watching thousands of women choose their lovers in public? Would you be able to put on makeup and dance for hours to win a woman's love? What has surprised you most about this country? Leave your answer in the comments. You'll be helping us a lot to keep creating content like this every week and growing this community. Plus, we love reading your comments, and you'll be surprised by what other people who are watching the same thing as you have to say. Thank you. Now, here comes the most disturbing and controversial part of this video. Let's find out about the villages where adults disappear to teach their children how to survive. In the remote heart of Niger, where the desert reigns supreme with its absolute harshness, there are villages so isolated that they do not even appear on official maps. In these nomadic settlements, something as unusual as it is real happens. Adults disappear for months, leaving the youngest behind. But they don't do it by chance. They do it to teach them how to survive. Knowing that their children must learn to endure one of the most lethal environments on the planet, the elders and parents voluntarily leave the villages with a clear purpose: to train the children in self-sufficiency, forging from an early age the strength of character necessary to live in the hottest desert on the planet. During these long absences, children and teenagers become the only inhabitants of the village. They organize themselves into small human herds, imitating what they have seen in their elders. They collect water, tend livestock, prepare food, keep customs alive, and even resolve internal disputes. It is a tribal education based on imitation and example. In these villages, there are no blackboards or desks, just wind, sand, and lots of sun. For them, the real school is their environment, and lessons are not learned from books, but from the experience of having to decide, act, and survive each day on their own. In some cases, the elders organize extreme coming-of-age rituals, in which teenagers must spend several days alone in the desert with no company other than their thoughts and their wits. These trials are not only meant to test physical endurance, but also wisdom. Often, many of these children learn to ride a camel before they can write their own name, and to follow the trail of a poisonous snake in the sand before they can follow the trail of a letter on paper. But this is only the beginning. They learn to read the sky to predict storms, to identify animal tracks in the middle of the desert, and to recognize, just by smelling the wind, whether a nearby well is dry or contaminated. During these periods, many master the art of making fire without matches, building shelters with little more than dry branches, and making toys from animal bones or goat skin hardened by the sun. Instead of fairy tales, young people in remote villages in Niger grow up listening to stories about desert spirits, invisible beings who punish cowardice and reward cunning. Many believe that some of these children develop a kind of sixth sense, honed by necessity and isolation. Young people navigate at night using the stars, as their ancestors did hundreds of years ago, and learn to hunt without leaving a trace, moving silently among the dunes as if they were part of the landscape. Above all, they learn to survive in one of the most hostile environments on the planet. These children and teenagers know that when they fall ill, there are no clinics here, so they learn to recognize medicinal plants by their smell and the shape of their leaves, following knowledge passed down through generations. Everything they know they have learned by observing, imitating, surviving. Many of them, barely 12 or 13 years old, are already responsible for younger siblings, tending goats, guarding the camps, and making decisions that in other parts of the world they would not even be allowed to think about. In these places, childhood is not a refuge, it is a training ground. But it is training without shouting or punishment, based on real responsibility. Because here, making a mistake can mean losing livestock, or your life. That is why these children do not know television or video games, but they do know the ancient legends told in the dark, under the starry sky, stories of wise men who spoke to animals and women who read the future in the sand. In this corner of the world, knowledge is something else. It is instinct. It is collective memory. It is survival. Because of all this, Niger is much more than a forgotten country. It is a mirror of what we were, what we could be, and what we still do not understand. But it is not all hardship and learning. There are also codes of solidarity, humor, and games that are born out of necessity in the sand. They live a different childhood, but one that is full of meaning and connection to their environment. Despite everything, there is one big question that persists here as in many other extraordinary regions of the planet. What future awaits these young people in an increasingly connected, urbanized world far removed from these ways of life? Are we looking at a primitive way of life or living proof that human beings can adapt to almost any condition? If you've made it this far, you're probably one of those few explorers who not only look, but want to understand the world as it is. That's why we invite you to subscribe, because as you can see, on this channel, we don't just show you what few people know. We also reveal the most unusual realities of humanity. This is Uncensored World, so thank you for being part of this community. Before ending this journey through one of the most enigmatic and extraordinary countries on the planet, we have done extensive research to help you discover how to get there, enjoy festivities such as the Gerewol, and make the most of this place that few dare to explore. Getting to Niger is not as complicated as you might think. From Europe, several airlines offer flights with a stopover in Niamey, the capital. The most common routes usually go through Paris or Istanbul. If you are coming from America, the most common route is to stop over in Europe before connecting to West Africa. If you are thinking of traveling, bear in mind that most countries require a visa to enter. You can apply for one at the embassies or consulates of Niger, and in some cases it is possible to arrange it on arrival, although this is not recommended. Your passport must be in order, and it is compulsory to be vaccinated against yellow fever. It is a country that requires some preparation, but that is precisely what makes it so special. When it comes to budget, Niger will surprise you. It is one of the cheapest countries on the planet. A hearty meal for two can cost around $10. A cup of coffee costs what you would pay for a piece of candy in other countries. And a night in a mid-range hotel in Niamey can cost around $30 or $40. If you want to witness the Gerewol Festival, the best time to visit is between late September and early October, when the Wodabe tribes gather after the rainy season. There is no fixed date each year, as it depends on the weather and nomadic cycles. But the celebrations usually last several days and are accessible through local guides who know the routes well. You can also enjoy an unforgettable experience by organizing a tour with the Tuareg, who offer camel rides through the desert, sharing their songs, stories, and ancestral customs with you under starry skies that seem to come from another planet. To get around the capital, you can use taxis, although it is also common to hire cars with drivers, especially if you plan to leave the city. In rural areas, distances are long, roads are dusty, and signage is scarce. Therefore, it is best to seek the help of local guides or agencies who know the area well. Although Niger is a fascinating country full of contrasts, it is essential to bear in mind that the security situation can be delicate in some regions, especially in the border areas with Mali, Burkina Faso, Libya, and Nigeria. For this reason, many governments recommend avoiding travel outside the main cities or traveling without expert local guides. However, with proper planning, the help of reliable agencies, and by staying within controlled areas such as Agadez or tourist routes to Gerewol, it is possible to enjoy a safe and unforgettable experience. For all these reasons, it is essential to always check in advance, consult official sources, and remember that the key is to travel with respect, curiosity, and caution. As you can see, traveling to Niger is not for everyone. But for those seeking authentic experiences, ancient culture, and the thrill of discovering something that almost no one has seen, it is a destination that leaves a lasting impression. Thank you for joining us on this journey. See you at the next destination on Uncensored World. If you also believe, as we do, that the real world is better than fiction, don't miss the next video, where we show you one of the most fascinating and unknown corners of the planet. Click now, because what you are about to see will surprise you.